Welcome back to the Bigger Than Birth podcast, where we're celebrating bigger bodies and beautiful births. I'm your host, Victoria Gaba, and each week we will be bringing you the real stories of plus-size moms as they share their journey through fertility, pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. These stories highlight what it's like to navigate through this experience as a woman in a bigger body in hopes of creating representation for plus-size moms, both present and future. Thank you for being part of this community as we share these stories that are so much bigger than birth. Hi everyone, welcome to today's show. Today we are hitting a huge milestone as Bigger Than Birth has officially been on the air for 3 months exactly today. We've gotten so much love and outpouring of support, and I could not be more grateful. We've gotten so many messages from other plus-size women either on their fertility journey or going through early pregnancy and how these stories have helped ease their minds and given them hope. And that is absolutely the goal of this podcast when I started it. I am thankful for every single person listening to this episode, and thank you for your continued love and support. If you have not already, please consider leaving us a review and making sure to like us on all our social media platforms. This is the best way to get us out in front of even more plus-size moms or plus-size women on their fertility journey so that we can continue helping and being a resource as much as possible for them. Today, I'm super excited to be able to sit down with Christina and share her story. Christina shares her experience that was really a roller coaster through fertility struggles, loss, and then ultimately having 2 beautiful babies earthside. Christina talks us through how she navigated fertility treatments and pregnancies as a plus-size woman with both PCOS and endometriosis. Christina takes us through her first pregnancy with her son Isaac, which resulted in a highly medicalized induction, 3 hours worth of pushing, and a real bout of postpartum anxiety afterwards. After enduring multiple heartbreaking losses, including that of her daughter Lavinia, Christina outlines how she turned to fertility treatments to eventually conceive her daughter Ruby. Despite a premature induction at only 36 weeks due to liver complications, Christina details her empowering, completely unmedicated second birth and her triumphant 14-month breastfeeding journey. Finally, Christina shares how she is channeling those profound experiences to be able to help others as a birth doula and a death coach. Christina's story is truly amazing, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as I did. As suggested in this intro, please note that there is a trigger warning for pregnancy loss, so if that's not something that you're in the mindset for right now, please feel free to skip this episode or come back at a later time. Please be sure to take care of yourself mentally, and without further ado, let's jump into Christina's story. Hey Christina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We are super excited to have you and to hear both of your birth stories. But before we jump into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and where y'all are from?
Okay, my name is Christina Ayala. I am from Fremont, Nebraska. I am 35 years old. I am a remarried mother of 2. I have one son from a previous marriage, and I have my daughter with my current husband now. My son's name is Isaac. His dad's name is Jackson. My daughter's name is Ruby. Her dad's name is Tony. 2 very different birth experiences with them. I have PCOS and endometriosis. I'm pretty sure I've got a couple other diagnoses that have gone under the radar, but those are the 2 that have been my big bugaboos as far as like weight control and things like that. Insulin resistance as well. It started after I did the depot shot when I was 18, 19. I did it for like a whole year. And that's what really like caused my PCOS symptoms to flare up and forced me to start doing treatment. So I have had 6 pregnancies total. I have 2 babies earthside. I've had 4 losses due to low progesterone in the beginning. Unfortunately, we had to learn that the hard way. I had to fight with doctors even just to get progesterone or to even be seen before 8 weeks because they refuse to see you before 3 months unless you're a special case. Yeah, I'm training to become a death coach. I love everything birth and babies. And when I was pregnant, like you said, I looked for resources for plus size gals, and there was next to none. All it was horror stories. All it was you're going to have a C-section or just a lot of fear, a lot of fear mongering. I felt like, it wasn't a lot of support. It wasn't trust your body, like that felt like skinny privilege. Like that was something only, skinny people got to do to listen to their bodies and all that stuff. Because when we listen, it's wrong. So
Yeah, well, I'm super excited to hear the very differing stories. So, kind of going back to the beginning, I know you said you had mentioned some prior losses. So, talk
Hmm.
us through, I guess, the beginning with your first husband of deciding, hey, we're wanting to start a family. Were you concerned because you knew you had a PCOS diagnosis, or did you know much about kind of fertility early in that journey?
My son was actually a surprise baby. Um, my husband and I had been married for 2 years at that point, I think. And we were celebrating an anniversary, and he was actually an anniversary baby. What happened was I had started gaining weight, and I was trying to get my PCOS under control. And so they put me on metformin, as they always do, and birth control to try to regulate my cycles because my cycles were all over the place. I had started off at about 230, and I had gained weight, and I was pushing about like 270 at that point. And then when they put me on the metformin, I was in the bathroom a lot, and I found that I couldn't eat anything that had a lot of fat. So I was on like a lean meat and vegetable diet. And I had lost about 60 pounds. And one day in October, I found out I was pregnant.
The metformin and the weight loss, so did that regulate your cycle at all, or this was, like, a still very irregular cycle and this was a complete surprise?
Super irregular, complete surprise. I was at a point where I knew that because my cycles were irregular, I was taking a pregnancy test every month just to be safe, because obviously I was sexually active with my husband, we always knew that there was a chance for pregnancy. So I was just on top of it, testing every month because we weren't trying, but I wanted to catch it early if there was something. And one day in October there was. So started with the doctor in Columbus, Nebraska, and she thankfully was very sweet. I called her in a panic and I was like, "Hey, so I just took a pregnancy test. Can I get in for a blood draw to see where I'm at? And can I get started on progesterone ASAP, please?" I had to fight with her office a little bit because her nurse was like, "Oh no, we don't see you until 3 months." And so they're like, "Your progesterone, it shouldn't be an issue because your placenta will take over." And I had to be like, "No, I've been here before. I know what this is like." So thankfully, me blowing up the doctor's office, she called me back and they got me with suppositories. Whoa. Those were the worst feeling ever. So it was the vaginal suppositories, and it was with like it felt like coconut oil. They put them in like these bullet sheets where you have to like push them out, and you have to lay there for like 15 minutes. So like when I'd first wake up in the morning, I'd pop one in, and I'd have to lay there and let it dissolve. And then when I would sit up, my husband would bring me a banana and a glass of orange juice for me to take my prenatals and my medicine and all that stuff with. And as soon as I stood up, you could feel everything just kind of like bleh. And then I worked 12-hour shifts at that point overnight. So I'd have to do it at work again that night. I'd have to go to the bathroom. I'd have to put it in, and I'd have to like lean back on the toilet so that way I'm not like sitting straight down. Oh man, my coworkers were not friendly.
They just think you're just taking a really long time in the bathroom and you're like, "Please, I'm just experiencing the very glamorous side of pregnancy."
No, it was so bad. I actually got into like a yelling match with one of my maintenance men because I had told him like I've had multiple losses. I am fragile. Like this egg, Fabergé. You know what I'm saying? So they didn't believe me. Women, they're always, "Oh, I worked up until I gave birth and my water broke while I was at work." And, fantastic for you. I'm glad you have an iron uterus. I do not. Um, so this guy, he was just being really mean to me. And we got into it, and I started crying, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry, guys. I don't usually cry over things like this." I had to bring a note from my doctor saying that, I can't lift more than a gallon of milk, you know, and people were really mad that I had to take it easy. So I worked there for as long as I could, and then I had to leave that job.
Yeah, it's so sad too. It's like, because did they know you were pregnant at that point?
Yeah. Yep.
See, it's like one thing if you don't know, like you hadn't been telling people and they were like, "Oh, she's slacking off." But to know you were pregnant and then like you said, "Hey, I've had prior losses. I'm really concerned about this." And then to still not care. It's like, "Come on, people, have a heart at some point."
Oh man, they were ruthless. I don't understand it, but yeah. So I left that job when I was about 6 months pregnant. And then we moved back to Fremont because that was Columbus, about 45 minutes away. We moved back to Fremont, my hometown, to be closer to family because we wanted that community when we had our son. I had actually lost weight during pregnancy because I had really bad morning sickness, and I couldn't like brush my teeth without throwing up. And it was every morning I'd have to brush my teeth at least like 3 or 4 times. I craved pineapple like crazy with him. And I remember my family getting into it with my best friend because they thought that eating too much pineapple was going to put me into early labor. I literally had to call my doctor and be like, "Is it okay that I'm eating so much pineapple?" So she said you have to eat like 10 in one sitting for it to even do anything. But, one a day was okay. That was my limit. So,
Yeah, it's like one of those your pineapple core or something is one of the labor prep items,
hmm
but like you said, you're gonna have a whole lot of that to get things actually moving. So did you have any medication or anything for the morning sickness, or did it kind of subside as you went on?
they did prescribe me the medicine, but I couldn't take it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I still felt nauseous. So I just kind of toughed it out until about 6 months. And then that's when I really started feeling more relief of the morning sickness. He was just, he was not nice to me, but his sister was even worse. I will give him that. Um,
Oh, no.
so when we moved back to Fremont, I started walking more, trying to get ready for labor. We were 3 months away. I kind of thought it would be a little bit sooner. I was bouncing on the exercise ball. It was pretty uneventful up until, we went in for labor. I thought that I had started going into labor because I thought I was having contractions, and when I timed them, it seemed like they were close enough that I would have to go to the doctor, and thankfully, my doctor, his name was, Derek Peters. He's not practicing here anymore. He actually moved to Utah with his wife and their family. He was incredible. He took such good care of me. He knew how anxious and nervous I was, and he tried to say like he understands where I'm coming from, not like personal experience, but he's like, I've seen enough of this that like you're in good hands. Um,
Right. Just trying to calm
but
your nerves throughout it.
hmm and he did a good job. He did a good
Yeah.
job. So I went into the hospital thinking that I was going into labor, and he's like, nope, nope, you probably Braxton Hicks. Make sure you're drinking water because it was summertime. And he asked if I wanted to have my membranes stripped. And I was like, "Sure, let's do that." So he stripped my membranes and nothing happened. Nothing. Um,
And how many weeks were you at that point?
38, 38 weeks.
Okay.
And he swept my membranes, and then they were worried about my son being too large. They said that he was measuring closer to around like 10 pounds, and they were concerned about him getting stuck. Um, I have pretty big hips, so I wasn't really afraid of him getting stuck, but I was really excited to see him. And so when they suggested doing induction, I was like, okay. I like the idea of being able to plan, of knowing like when he's gonna come. So I agreed. I was like, yeah, well, let's do that. Let's go ahead and plan for an induction on 39 weeks. We went in on June 13th. We went in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. By 7:30, I was hooked up to the IV and everything, and they started doing Pitocin. I was on Pitocin for maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours before a nurse came in, and she was like, "Hey, we're gonna crank your Pitocin up, and if you want to get an epidural, you either need to do it now, or you're gonna have to wait 2 hours from the point that you want it, and it might be too late.
Oh
You
my
might not be able to
gosh.
get it at that point." Yeah. So I was terrified. I was like, "Oh, uh, uh." We just started. Like, we're just at the beginning of this. Like, I wanted to get up and
Right.
walk around. Like, I had a whole idea of what I was going to do, but I was terrified of being without if I needed it?
And was that just because, like, the anesthesiologist was busy, or did she give you a reason of why it would take 2 hours?
Yep, because he was going to have to go do something else, surgery or something. He was going to be unavailable, and it was going to be a 2-hour wait from the time that I asked for it to the time that he'd be able to get to me. So I panicked.
Yeah.
I was just like, she wasn't the nicest nurse. She seemed really irritated with us being there. Um, I panicked. I took it. I took the epidural, and even I'm terrified of needles. The IV is always like one of the worst parts for me, just because I don't know why they can't get it. They put it in my hand for my son, and so I'm trying to like push and do all these things and readjust. And I've got this cannula coming out of my hand. Oh my goodness, horrible placement. Um, so this sweet old man with a beautiful Georgia accent comes strolling in, and he is just like hunched over his little med cart, and he's okay, darling, I'm gonna get you taken care of. I'm scared because he's like shaky and old. And then they have me grab a hold of my IV stand, and I have a pillow in front of me, and I'm like hunched over. They told me to like round my back. They were waiting for a contraction to put it in, but like as it was, my ex-husband told me that he sharpened up like as soon as he got the needle, like because he was like shaking until he got the needle, and then he like steadied up, and then he put it in my back. Um,
You're like, if there is a time to be steady, now is it, sir?
yeah, I'm so glad he locked in. He got it on the first try, and I felt that static in my legs that like crept down. Oh, it was so weird. And I'm like, okay, okay, yeah, I feel it. That's working. Cool. So I labored for, let's see, we got there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was born at 5:20 in the morning. So about 10 hours. I labored for 10 hours, and we got the epidural at like 10 a.m.
And had you been feeling contractions prior to the epidural? Like once they started the Pitocin on a low dose, were you feeling contractions or they still were super minor before the
They were
epidural?
still super mild. And of course, we stalled out because of the epidural. So, like, we were making progress. I'd actually gone in and I was 3 centimeters dilated. So, I didn't have any contractions or anything, but that must have been the membrane sweep doing that. Um, so it stalled. They had to up the Pitocin again, and everything was fine. I didn't feel it. I was sleeping. They were rolling me around with a peanut because I couldn't get up and walk. And then when they came to check me, they were like, all right, time to push. And I was like, oh, okay. I pushed for 3 hours because of that. I couldn't feel what I was doing. And they're like, use this muscle here. And he's got his fingers in me, and he's like trying to tap the muscle. And I'm like, you could be in China right now. Like, are you touching my toes? Cause what muscles am I using here? So, I'm trying. I'm like on the bed trying to like leverage myself. And first of all, when you're in the hospital bed and you're already a big girl, I have an apron belly. My belly is like the biggest part of me. Um, And then on top of that, my son, like he was like a basketball, you know, a giant beach ball in my stomach. And so they're trying to have me look, and I'm like, I can't even touch my toes. Like, how am I supposed to push like this? They had to have my mom and my husband on either side of me, and they were like trying to pull my legs up by my head. And it was just horrible. Like, I had no control. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like they were trying to give me direction, but it meant nothing to me. I had no idea what they were talking about. And so I was like, okay. Once my son started crowning, I could feel it. And so I was like, oh, okay, that hurts. I know it. I feel that. The nurse told me it's just pressure. You're not feeling any pain right now. Just keep pushing. And I'm like, no, I know the difference between pressure and pain. This is pain. Like, ow, ow, ow. So they got sick of me saying ow, I guess, and gave me another dose of the epidural, which worked too hard because then I lost control of my legs again. I went from feeling the ring of fire to feeling nothing and then being told to push. And it was just so horrible. I had 3 stitches. So I think it was like a level 1 tear. But he was born. I mean, I pushed for 3 hours. 5:20 p.m. He was 7 pounds.
And did they give you any break in between like those 3 hours of pushing, or that was
No,
just a constant, like, keep going, keep going?
constant. Yep. Every contraction. They were
Jeez.
watching the little monitor with my belly. They put an internal monitor because the one kept rolling up off of my belly. It kept trying to come up towards me or trying to roll completely down underneath my belly. So they were like, well, we got to do an internal monitor. I had no idea that the internal monitor had a hook screw that went into the soft spot on their head. No idea. No one told me. They're just like, we're going to put one in there. It'll be able to tell us that baby's okay. And I'm like, oh, okay. Um, again, I was so brand new. I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know what anything was. I wish they would have told me because I felt bad once I knew because I could see the little spot on his head, and I was like, what happens? Like, can they go too far? I wish I would have been more informed. But yeah, he was born 7 pounds, 12 ounces, 20 inches long. I struggled with breastfeeding really hard. I did ask for help while I was at the hospital, but the lactation consultant was just like, "Yeah, you're doing great." hmm And I'm like, "This doesn't feel right. It hurts." They told me to ask for help if it hurts because it's not supposed to hurt. So I was like, "It's hurting. How do we help?" Um, that night that we took him home after 3 days in the hospital. So he was kind of jaundiced, but they still let us go. Uh, that first night that we took him home, I remember being in the dark and being in our bedroom with my ex-husband and crying because I'm like trying to get him to latch and I can't get him to latch. And I was like, oh, I can't feed my baby. He's hungry. So we ended up like opening up formula and supplementing with that. And I felt like such a failure. And it was so hard. I was so mad because I felt like my body had already let me down with PCOS and made pregnancy harder for him. And, I was told that it was my PCOS that caused preeclampsia. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that. That's what made us start the induction because he's like, if you want to, we can go because you're starting to show signs of preeclampsia because my feet were swelling and
Okay.
everything like that. So they checked me for 2 weeks after I had my son and everything was fine, but they had said that my PCOS was the cause of all that because my
Hmm.
PCOS is what's making me gain weight. And because I was big, I would have preeclampsia. So, I felt like I failed my son because I couldn't my body wasn't doing what it was supposed to, and I had postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety really bad. I was afraid that he was gonna pass in his sleep. For the first 3 months of his life, I slept on the couch with him. I had pillows set up so that way we could sleep like this. Like, I would hold him with my, breastfeeding pillow, and then we would just sleep like this on the couch.
Were you able to get either medication or get help for the postpartum depression or anxiety, or was that something you just tried to work through on your own?
No, I definitely was in contact with my doctor because my mom had experienced postpartum psychosis with
Okay.
I'm the youngest of 5, so it's my, eldest brother closest in age to me, my brother Robert. She had postpartum psychosis, and she kinda blacked out one day while feeding him, and she got really scared, so I was very careful. I didn't I was terrified of something happening by my hand. So my doctor kept a very close eye on me, and, I came back at 4 weeks and then again at 6 weeks because he wanted to make sure that I was okay, especially with the preeclampsia and all that stuff too. So, I was put on Zoloft, which made me very tired. Um, I also started smoking again while I'm a former smoker. I started smoking cigarettes again while I was breastfeeding, and my doctor was very disappointed with that, but I had a hard time after having my son. That's when my husband and I split when my son was like a year old. It was not an easy divorce. It was really rough. I felt very guilty about separating our home. But honestly, now, 9 years later, it's the best thing I've ever done. We're in a lot better of a spot now. We are very successfully co-parenting, and I'm so grateful for that. Um, yeah, he's he's a very active part of our son's life, and I'm grateful for that. With my son, I had gotten close to like 290 pounds when I went to go deliver, and I had lost about 30 pounds of baby weight, amniotic fluid, stuff like that. When I went to the office at 4 weeks, I was 275. And then when I went back at 6 weeks, I was about 230. So I had gone back to about where I was when I started, when I first found out I was pregnant with my son. They said I was supposed to lose weight breastfeeding, but both times I've breastfed, I did not lose weight at all. With my son, I only got to breastfeed him for 3 months because he had MSPI, which is a milk-soy protein allergy, very common in the Midwest, which is so bizarre.
Right, because it's like the dairy capital.
Yeah, yeah. We eat a lot of beef in Nebraska, especially Nebraska. You
Yeah.
know, we are known for our corn and for our beef. So we were trying to do the elimination diet for the breastfeeding, and I was eating a lot of eggs, boiled eggs for easy protein. And after 3 months of watching him suffer, I finally was like, we're just doing formula. I can't do this anymore. Like, I feel so guilty hearing him scream and watching him, throw up and things. Like, it was awful. And he was already taking an acid and another medicine to try to help with the reflux. So we quit. I quit breastfeeding. He had MSPI, and after I left my husband, I had gained a bunch of weight. My weight has been back and forth because of PCOS. So I usually hover around the mid 200s to close to 300. After I'd left my husband, I started dating my current husband, and we had dated for about a year and a half before we moved in together. And I used to joke around with him and tell him that as soon as we moved in together, I knew I was going to get pregnant like right away. I was like, I'm calling it. I'm like, a month after we move in together, I'm going to end up being pregnant. And it really did go that way. I was like, I was right.
The prediction.
I was like, I know it. I just know because I'd lost a bunch of weight again. And we weren't trying, we weren't doing anything. But my sister, Jenny, had just had bariatric surgery. And so I was doing her diet with her. And I was meeting with a bariatric doctor as well, not for the option of surgery, but just because I needed help managing my diet and trying to treat my PCOS that way because everyone told me that it was weight gain. So I have to lose weight if I want to treat myself. So I was going on a very strict diet of 70 grams of protein a day at minimum and 70 grams of carbs a day at maximum. So I was losing weight very fast. And I believe I got down to, I want to say 175. And I hadn't been that size in a long time. I'd gotten pregnant unexpectedly and we'd gone to the doctor. I'd gotten the progesterone and everything. This time they had me take it orally. And I kind of panicked a little bit. And I asked them, it's not going to be any different because last time I did a suppository vaginally and my baby was okay. This is a different route, which means a different metabolism. Is that going to affect my baby? And they're like, no, 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 you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We ended up having a miscarriage at 13 weeks. The baby had passed away at 9 weeks because we had an 8-week checkup. Baby was fine, very active. We could see everything. Everything looked good. And according to the timeline, it seemed like the baby passed away shortly after that appointment. And my body didn't know. I didn't know. We weren't able to be seen again until that 12-week mark. And it was really hard. And it hit a lot harder because we didn't know that we had wanted it so bad, you know? We had already had my son, and we were past the hardest part of trying to co-parent with my first husband. And we were kind of hitting a groove. It wasn't really the best that we weren't where we are now, but it was starting to get better. And, when we lost the baby, we were just kind of like, okay, well, what do we do now? She wasn't planned, but now I kind of feel like something's missing. Unfortunately, we didn't get a long time to mourn or process anything because about a month after I had had the surgery to have everything cleared out, the DNC and everything, they also went ahead and scraped my uterus for any kind of polyps, fibroids, anything that could be attached for my endometriosis. So they just kind of cleaned me out as good as they could. And we had an opportunity to kind of start trying if we wanted to. After that surgery, we got COVID. And it was like at the start of COVID when everyone had to quarantine.
Yeah.
And so we got quarantined twice back to back. So we were in our house alone together for like 2 months, just locked in. I had to send my son with his dad. And right after that, my family kind of hit a rough spot. My sister Jenny, we were pregnant at the same time. We were like 2 weeks apart. She had her baby April 13th, and I was really sad because I should have had my baby within that 2-week window. And then unfortunately, my sister passed away 9 days after her son was born, unexpectedly.
Oh no.
Yeah, my sister was. my best friend. She was my answer for everything. When I had lost my daughter, she was giving me advice on how to get my body back, how to heal. She told me what pregnitude was, what maca root does. Like she was my big encyclopedia. So I mean, her I'm still reeling from her passing. It put a damper on things, and when she passed, we focused on her son, helping with her boys, making sure they were taken care of. And then about a year or so after, we kind of decided, okay, it's time to think about us. You know, it's really hurting my heart watching my nephew grow up, feeling like there's a part of me that's missing. So we were talking about, do we want to get married and spend money on a nice ceremony? Or do we want to put that money towards having a baby? Because I'm going to need help. They flat out told me I will not get pregnant again without some kind of intervention, you know? So we decided to have a baby. We went to Heartland Fertility over in Omaha, Nebraska, and we started all the tests that they do. You know, they want to see where you're at with blood work and everything. We had tried on our own for like a year and a half before then, and nothing had happened. I had tried the pregnitude, I had tried tracking, I was on birth control to regulate my hormones, I was on metformin. Um, he was taking maca root. He was taking a men's daily supplement. We were doing everything that you could think of, you know. And that's when I really dove deep on the internet trying to get this information. And everything said lose weight, lose weight. And especially because that was the answer before, or that was the correlation the doctors drew that I had lost weight, therefore I got pregnant. I just need to lose weight now, you know, and I'll get pregnant. We did fertility treatments for about a year, and it turns out that my eggs just weren't fully developing. So they would mature so far, and then I would have this like almost ready egg, and then it just would never pop out and fully mature. So it was weeks of going in every day to watch my eggs before they gave me a trigger shot. Oh, I can't remember the name of it now.
The trigger shot, were you taking, in combination with, like, letrozole or Clomid, or you were
hmm
ovulating on your own anyways?
Letrozole. She had me take that. So I had to do that in my stomach, about 2 inches from my belly button, and I had like this red mark for like a week. And they told us to baby dance as much as you can within that 3-day window. Once you give that shot, much as you can. And so we're like, oh, okay. We were not able. We did it like maybe 3 times during that window because we were not able to. Uh, we had to like sneak off to the bathroom. I'd be like, all right, I got the kids sat down. Let's go.
Exactly, it's easier said than done when you have young ones running around the house.
And so we tried to do the 2-week wait, but I could not. I wanted to see the medicine test out. And so I tested every day for those 2 weeks. And on July 14th, my sister Jenny's birthday, I found out that I was pregnant. I got my first positive on her birthday.
Gosh, that's so special.
I know she was there for me. And so we graduated from the reproductive center. They got me on the progesterone and everything really fast right away. They were on top of everything. They were absolutely fantastic. That one place, I have never been taken care of better in my life than they took care of me. Heartland Reproductive, they were amazing. I love them so much.
That's great. And did you ever ask the doctors there the correlation of potentially your previous loss with the oral progesterone versus suppository? Did you ever find out if that could have been part of it?
I did not. They said that it depends on your body and how it gets metabolized. So they said that going orally, you do miss a little bit of that progesterone just because of how the body wears it down. It's not like a direct into your bloodstream because the membranes in your vagina are so thin, you know? So yeah, they said that obviously there is a little bit of a drop off, but they don't know for sure if there's any correlation. All of my previous losses were treated like medical waste and they were tested. I mean, I've had some brutal experiences with loss. Um, Losing my daughter Lavinia was the first time that I was treated like I had actually lost a baby, like I had lost something of value and not just waste, you know? So that I really appreciated that. But uh no, she was tested and there was no answer. We never got an answer. It was just these things happen sometimes, you know? So we didn't get that closure.
And I know that's a little nerve-wracking moving forward, but like you said, you
Mhm.
got a great fertility clinic that was very supportive through the process. So they were able to put you back on the suppository version of progesterone.
Nope, I took the oral version. They just kind of dosed up
Oh,
the
really?
dose to make sure
Okay.
that, it was safe. They also let me come in for another ultrasound at 12 weeks just to make sure. It was at 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. They let me come in during that spot that we didn't know that we lost our daughter just to be
Mhm.
sure, like just so we could see the baby. There was no other purpose other than ultrasound. Peace of mind. Like I cried in that office so much and those women, they were so fantastic. Like it was really hard. I was dealing with a lot of grief, but like I was so focused on having a baby that I felt like I really needed that. Um, so we graduated after 3 months. We were able to go to normal care. I ended up having gestational diabetes and I had to check my blood sugar when I woke up, after every meal, and then before I went to bed. My ex-husband is a type 1 diabetic, so I kind of had some history with that. I was kind of prepared to be able to do that. I didn't have to take any insulin shots, thank God, but I did have to quit carbs. And of course, everything I was craving was carbs, fruit, ice cream, sweets galore, chocolate brownies. Ugh. Nope, not allowed to have it. It was really bad. Like I could just look at a muffin or smell a cookie and my blood sugar would spike. It was so bad. That was the biggest wrench in our pregnancy at that point until about 30, 34 weeks. She put me in the hospital for a couple of days because I had a random liver enzyme spike. They were concerned that it was going to end up being silent preeclampsia, is what they were saying, because I guess preeclampsia can mess with your liver enzymes. I had no idea. I wasn't having any swelling. I wasn't having the previous signs of preeclampsia that I had had, and so I got kind of freaked out. Like they had me stay, and then they tested my enzymes every day, and they just randomly went back to normal. And they were like, "We're gonna keep an eye on you, but yeah, it's fine again. Like your levels went back down. Whatever it was, we happened to catch it and it's just regulated itself." So I was like, okay, okay. It didn't stay like that for very long because I was at home for a week and then we ended up having to get induced at 36 weeks because I was having issues with my diabetes. I was having issues with my liver. And then I had previous signs of preeclampsia. So they were like, you know what, we're gonna induce you at 36 weeks because we don't want to risk anything. Um, with your liver doing this, it could cause a stillborn. So it's up to you, but we recommend doing 36 weeks. At that point, technically, you're full term. She won't be a premature baby. So I said, okay. And literally that Monday, that day that I turned 36 weeks, they started the induction at 7 p.m.
So talk us
Mhm.
through the early stages of that. Did that go differently, you said, than the first induction?
Oh yeah. So they told me I was going to have to do a Foley bulb, which I don't. Again, there's two water balloons on either side of your cervix that slowly get closer and closer and closer till you have no more space between them. Um, I was terrified because I've heard nothing but horror stories about how bad that pressure hurts. Um, so we go in there at 7 p.m. My ex-husband took our son, so we had like the whole day to prepare. And it was just me and my husband. We went for a walk, we went shopping, we packed our bags, and then like a mile or so down the road, we had a Chipotle, and they told me to eat before I went in because after that, they wouldn't be able to let me eat. So we went to Chipotle. We got there. We sat in the parking lot of the hospital eating our food and, kind of reflecting on how this is our final moments as, family of three. We got up to the hospital. I took my little TikToks. I had done a video where I was doing my induction countdown from 10. It was like a Beyonce thing that she had done or something. Um, and it blew up on TikTok. And I have no like Megan Trainor saw it, she liked it and everything. So I was like, that was the coolest moment of my life. Um, but I'd taken a video every day of my bump for the last 10 days before induction, and I didn't expect anyone to see it. I put a picture of me in my underwear, you know what I mean? Doing like my morning bump check, I, I did not think anyone was going to see it other than like maybe friends or family. Someone who's already seen me like that, Megan Trainor's seen me in my underwear, along with 7.3 million other people have seen me in my friggin'
Right.
underwear. Oh my
That's so
goodness.
funny.
So I'm so grateful for like the exposure, but like I was not expecting that. And people were so mean. Like they were
Really?
either really lovely because of my weight, because of my belly. They're like, "Oh, you could fit like 18 babies in there, or are you having twins? There's got to be more than one in that thing, you know?" And even though I'm big, my belly is just naturally big during pregnancy. Like my son, I look like I swallowed a beach ball. And then with my daughter, she was also huge. I was worried that I wasn't going to look pregnant as a plus size gal being pregnant. And for the first couple months, I didn't have much of a belly. And I was like, where it's in there. Like I said, I have an apron belly. So I'd like reach underneath the apron and I could feel my uterus there. And I'd be like, hold on, grab my belly, like lug it up and tell my husband, feel right here. And so, you got to do what you got to do. That thing moves.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
I remember telling my doctor too, they were trying to like do an ultrasound and I was like, hold on, let me grab it real quick. And I like flopped it up. I was like, can you get better access under here?
I had to do the exact same thing because I have an apron belly as well, and feel like so many women are embarrassed to do that. I'm like, Girl, it is not the
Mm-hmm.
first time that they've seen a woman with a big belly. If you gotta hike that thing up,
Mm-hmm.
you do what you gotta do."
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And they've seen worse, so I don't even feel bad because at least I showered.
Yep. Yeah, they're
Oh,
probably very
also
appreciative of that.
with my son, I was so worried about them seeing my vagina with hair that like I panicked and like made my husband try to help me like trim down there for them. And I was like, "Do you think it's weird that they know that like you did this for them?" You know?
You're welcome,
And so
nurses.
right, but, like, with my daughter, I was like, "All natural, like, you're gonna have to, like, get in there if you wanna get in."
Yeah,
And
that
so,
second child, you're like, "Sorry, it is
I don't
what it
even
is."
care. Mm-mm. "You've been here before." No.
Right.
Um, so it was really relaxed this time around with my daughter. When I got in, I was, again, 3 centimeters dilated, but I was having steady contractions, like, big contractions. I didn't know that, I didn't feel them. They had said that, by the looks of my body, I was in labor for at least a day and a half before I came in. So I was like, "Oh, you mean I've been having contractions this whole time?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like, I mean, I had like a couple of, little pains and things. I thought it was Braxton Hicks because last time with my son, they said it was nothing. So I just ignored it, said it was nothing. So she was ready. She wanted to come out. We didn't have to do the Foley bulb because I was already dilated some, but they were like, okay, we want to make you really uncomfortable. So we're going to crank this Pitocin up every hour. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, okay. They're like, so you let us know when it starts hurting. I'm like, okay. Um, my husband and I are watching the season 1 finale of The Last of Us. And I was like warning him, if you hear zombie sounds or anything, it's just because of us here. It's not like I'm not in danger. So we're sitting there and they're coming in every hour. They're turning it up and they're like, are you feeling it yet? Are you feeling it? I'm like, no, nope. And they're like, okay. So like after like 4 or 5 times of them coming in, they're like, you're not feeling that. And I'm like, I feel like I have a period cramp. Like I'm not doubled over yet. Like I was told that when it's a contraction, it'll make you stop. Like you can't breathe. Like you'll be, it'll be like the worst pain in your life. And so they're like, okay. They cranked up the Pitocin again and nothing. I don't know. Like they were terrified of me because I was just like, you guys said you were gonna make me uncomfortable.
So I know with PCOS and endometriosis, you are kind of probably used to a baseline level if you have a period of like pretty bad cramps. Do you think
Oh,
that's like
absolutely.
your pain tolerance is just so much higher because of that?
Yep, absolutely. Um, my husband he's obviously he's seen me through a lot of my periods, and it's always I get like that warning cramp of like, oh, I'm gonna die this week. Okay. Um, but as far as contractions go, they were really intense, but I wouldn't say that they hurt, you know? I felt more pain than that in my body before, you know? Um, so when they backed off of the Pitocin, because you can't stay on it consistently for very long, right? They have to back down after a certain point. So when they backed down, my husband and I got up and started doing laps around the hospital of the maternity ward because I told him it was very important for me to walk this time because I didn't get to do that with my son. And I feel like that would
Right.
have helped us big time, you know? So we did. We walked for hours around until they had to put me back on the baby monitor. That they put me on a portable one. And then when the battery died on that, I had to go get connected back up again. Um, at that point, they asked me if I wanted the epidural, and I'm like, I really want to see how far I can go without it. And they're like, okay. So I'm getting there and it's starting to hurt a little bit. I'm starting to get a little bit uncomfortable. I have one of those barber combs that I was squeezing in my hand. And so like I was just breathing and I'm moving around and I'm swaying. I got on the birthing ball and they wanted to put an internal monitor again. And so I was like, okay. They put an internal monitor in and I'm sitting there and I'm rolling my hips and everything and I accidentally rip it out of her head. So they have me hop
Oh
back
my
up on the
gosh.
bed. Yeah, well, cause like, okay, so I'm on the ball and I have my pelvis tilted forward and I'm like grinding on the ball trying to get my hips out and having my hip pointed like straight down was the best relief that I was getting from like all the pressure and pain. So as I like had my pelvis tilted straight down, it also put pressure on the cord. And when I gyrated and moved my hip, it and so the cord like fell down and the nurse was like, I didn't understand why,
Yeah.
because I still hadn't asked questions about the monitor since my son. I didn't ask questions. Um,
Yeah.
so they got me back on the bed and they were getting ready to put one back in, and the doctor is the one that explained it. Um, I had to see a different doctor for the last half of this pregnancy because, like I said, Dr. Peters, he moved to Utah with his wife and their 4 kids. So his buddy, it was his best friend in the office, I guess, Dr. Carlson. He was like, he operates much the same that I do. You're gonna love him. He's gonna take care of you. You're good. And I did, and he did, and we were great. He was like, we got this thing here. It's got the screw. It goes in the soft spot. And I'm like, whew. And he's like, it's okay. It'll be fine. He's like, just be careful how you're moving so you don't, yank it out again. And I'm like, okay, okay. And he's like, hey, while I'm here, you want me to pop your water? And I'm like, okay. So he gets that long, it looks like a zip tie, almost like a really long zip tie. And he just goes in there and pop. And I had so much amniotic fluid. And I mean, like, it was an awkward gush of like everywhere. And then I'm like, okay, I think it's done. So I sit up and then more would come out. And then I'd stand up and then more would come out. And so I went to the bathroom and I was just like everywhere. Oh my goodness. It was so much. It was a lot more than my son. But after that, like my belly went down and everything. It was so weird to see. I was like, oh, dang, that was all cushioning. She started moving and I could see her like little feet. So at that point, I'm moving, I'm walking, I'm starting to make those low sounds whenever the contractions are coming, My mom had showed up finally because it was towards the end and it was just me, my mom, and my husband. That was it. That was all that was in the room. I looked at the nurse and she's chuckling by the way, and I was like, what? And she's like, how you feeling? And I'm like, well, to be honest with you, if it's gonna be any longer, I might need an epidural. Like I'm getting tired. Like I don't know. Can we like how much longer am I gonna have to do that? Because like if we got an hour from this point, I could probably tough it out. But if we're gonna do like another 6 hours, 8 hours, like I need a nap,
Right.
you know? So she starts smiling and she's like, I kind of thought so. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, from your breathing. I can usually tell who's in transition by their breathing. She's like, you're breathing like you're going through it. She's like, I'm willing to bet you're probably ready to push. She's like, let me go get the doctor. And so I'm like, okay. Like going through it, being like, if you know something, tell me. Shit. You know?
Right. Also, I feel like that is a good nurse that has the experience, like, because you're not having to check, like, you're not having to do a cervical check, like, you can tell by the
Mhm.
demeanor, by the breathing, by the noises, like, that's a very experienced nurse.
Oh, she was way more excited than I was. She was like, "Oh, we're getting close." And I'm like, "You know something I don't."
Right, like, "How do you know that, ma'am?"
Yeah, I was like, "You see me going through it." Like, it was not reassuring. So anyways, the doctor comes in, he checks me. He's like, "Oh, you're 8 centimeters." He's like, "We could probably start pushing now." He's like, "You ready to push?" And I was like, I don't know." He's like, "We can listen to your body. If your body feels like you're ready, we can go." And I was like, "Yeah, I feel like I have that pressure. Like I could start like I could start pushing, like I feel like I want to." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "Don't start pushing yet. Let me get dressed." And I'm like, "Okay, okay." And it was really intense and it was really like I could feel it up in my ribs, but all the pressure was down from like the bottom of my stomach. It was like a horseshoe, like it was squeezing mostly from the sides and up, you know? He got dressed and he was like, "All right, your next contraction, we're going to go ahead and push." And I'm laying there and I'm trying to like stay in the zone. I'm trying to breathe. So I have my eyes closed and I'm holding onto the rail and I'm just breathing nice and calm, trying to be steady and nothing. There's no contraction. I don't feel the urge to push. And he's like, "How you feeling?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute. we got a little bit of time here." It took like 5 minutes for another contraction to come.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "Oh, here it is, here it is. I'm ready, I'm ready." And so I start pushing, and I couldn't get good leverage because I told the doctor I don't want to labor on my back. I do not want to push on my back. And he's like, "Okay, how do you want to do it?" And I'm like, "I don't know, squatting. What do you think?" You know? And he's like, "Well, the only problem I see with squatting is your belly." He's like, "It might cause some uh blockage for viewing." He's like, "And I would be afraid of not being able to see when the baby's coming out." He's like, "That's just my honest opinion." He's like, "Because if I set you up, we're gonna put you on the bed, we're gonna give you a bar, and you're gonna be right there." And he's like, "I'm gonna be able to get underneath you, but he's like, that's the only thing I could see." And so I was like, "Okay." He's like, "But it also depends on the angle that the baby's coming out right now." He went and checked on my daughter, and she was face down. I'm sorry, no, she was face up. Babies are supposed to come face down because they rotate them as they come out, right? So he said she's
Mhm.
not in the right position to come out. He's going to have to turn her. So he goes inside and he goes to turn her, and I feel her shoulder bone graze against my hip bone. And it felt like bone on bone grinding. And I screamed so loud. I mind you, I was silent this whole time. No screaming, no yelling, just breathing and like that. That was it. I yelped. Whoo! And he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Like he pulled his hand out. It was like, and so I was like, "That hurt. Nope, we're not doing that. Mm-mm. Nope. Mm-mm." And so he's like, "Okay, okay. We're gonna have to put you on your back. We're gonna have to lean your butt up, and we're gonna need to like full gen half. Okay." He's like, "You're gonna have to push." And again, he's tapping the muscles. I could feel it that time. So I'm like, "Oh, okay." So like I'm trying to like get leverage. So I'm like pushing the bars out. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm pushing." And he's like, "Not with your arms. Use these muscles here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." I'm pushing and he's like helping the baby come out. Like he's like pushing my lips back and everything. And I'm pushing, and then we get to a point where the baby kind of got stuck. And he told my husband to help lift my leg. And I swear to God, he pulled like a wrestling move on me. Like he grabbed like the doctor told him to move and he's and then I'm laying there, and all of a sudden, I'm like getting kneed in the face by my own knee, and my husband's like panicking, and I'm like, "What the? Okay." Damn. So we pushed like three more pushes from there, and she was out. But like he meant business. Like my poor husband, I've never seen him more panicked in my life. Like he is red, and he is just like, so.
He was not expecting for the doctor to, like, tag him in, and he was just ready
Oh,
to
he was
go.
on it. It was just full force. I mean, like full wrestling move. I mean, this leg.
That's hilarious.
Um. So she comes out. I remember I pushed. I remember feeling so hot. I was so sweaty and so hot, and I pushed, and she was out, and I ended up popping all the blood vessels in my face and my neck because of how hard I had to bear down and push. I would say my body successfully released the chemicals that it's supposed to, because I don't remember it actually hurting. I don't feel like the act of pushing her out hurt. My son hurt. I felt it. It hurt.
Yeah.
Her, I was very calm. I was able to listen to my body. I wasn't listening to the doctor. He was telling me push. I wasn't pushing when he told me to push. I pushed when my belly told me to push. You know what I mean? And they count down to, 1, 2, 3, and relax. Nope. I pushed for as long as I felt like I needed to. And he was cool with it. He seemed to like be in rhythm with it. He could tell that I was like not deviating but listening to myself. And it honestly made all the difference because it was really easy. Like I would hands down have a natural vaginal delivery again before I ever thought about an epidural, ever, you know?
So once she was born, were they able to give her to you kind of straight away and have that bonding time?
Actually, Dad got to hold her first. He got to cut the umbilical cord, and then he got to hold her because I was actually like when she first came out, I was so tired. I was like flooded with hormones, chemicals, and stuff like that. And I remember because we took video, and I like do the Breakfast Club fist, woohoo, we made it. And like 5 seconds later, it's like you wake up, and it was just like I was alert. I wasn't so tired anymore, and I was like, oh, where's that baby? Like uh. So I took her from my husband, and I tried to get her on the breast right away, and I got to hold her, and oh, she was so sweet. I didn't have any tearing, no issues, nothing like that. Yeah, she was great. We didn't realize that she was jaundice as well. My son Isaac had to stay in the hospital for 3 days when he was first born, and then he was fine. 3 days and he was done. My daughter ended up having to be put in the NICU because when we were discharged, we were able to take her home, and we put her on a little bilirubin light that we took with us, and that didn't help her levels raise at all. And it turns out her stomach was not quite fully developed because she was only 36 weeks, and that was one of the last things, to develop besides the lungs. And they had given me the shot to help her lungs start to prepare for birth when I was in the hospital at 34 weeks. So that was our biggest concern. They also saw that she had a dimple on her spine, above her butt crack on her spine. They said that it could interrupt her walking, and it could make hitting milestones harder for her. So like we were like really concerned, especially when the jaundice didn't go away. They had to put her in the NICU, and she was in the NICU for a week or so, like a little over a week. And it was like the hardest thing ever. I felt so bad because we live in Fremont, and it was like 45 minutes away from the hospital that we delivered at. And the first time that they made me go home and leave her to go like get rest or shower or whatever, like I cried the whole way. I was like, what if something happens to her and I'm not there? Um, I was having a hard time pumping and getting milk for her. It was insane. Um, I didn't have the postpartum depression with her, but I had the postpartum anxiety, especially leaving her in the NICU. We tried to stay with her as much as we could. And thankfully, Nebraska, they have some really beautiful hospital space there for the NICU that we were able to stay in room with her. We had our own suite with her, and the hospital helped me with breastfeeding while I was in there. So much more than like the lactation consultant that goes and does rounds on the maternity ward. The one that was in the NICU was phenomenal. She stayed there with me. She measured my nipple for flange size, which is something I didn't know about. Um, I had the wrong flanges. She got me the correct ones. They gave me a resource to a referral to Milkworks in Omaha, which is a whole company designed to help mothers with lactation and things of that nature. I got to go work with them, and they helped me successfully breastfeed. and I got to breastfeed my daughter for 14 months. So I felt so accomplished with that. Yeah, it was so scary having her be in the NICU. We were a wreck. Uh, we finally got to take her home, and she stayed home, and she's been a little spitfire ever since. Yeah, I posted many TikToks of our experience there too.
Yeah. And so did they tell you what was it just the jaundice that they were monitoring, or were they also monitoring the spine issue?
The spine issue and her stomach. The stomach was the main thing. She wasn't able to digest the milk that she was getting, so that was what was causing her jaundice. Her stomach was just not mature
Oh,
enough to be on formula, or not formula, to be having milk. She was not ready to leave the womb yet. So I felt really guilty about that because I felt like I did that to her. Um, but the doctor reassured me. He's like, "You weren't doing this because you're on vacation and you're trying to meet a deadline." He's like, "Your enzymes were going up and down, and if they'd gone up on a night where you would have been home, it could have caused something to happen to her, and you would have felt worse if
right.
that happened, you know?" So, yeah, it was just her stomach. Once her stomach caught up, it was about, like I said, about a week. And at 38 weeks, we were able to bring her home and have her home to stay, and she didn't have any issues after that. The dimple ended up being nothing. I mean, she still has it, but she was
Yeah.
up and walking at like 10 months, you know. She was crawling, scooting, all that stuff. Like she hit milestones the way that she was supposed to. Um, and she just has a dimple that I have to be really careful with whenever I clean her up and everything. And yeah.
No, that's great, and it's great that you were able to kind of have that redemptive breastfeeding journey because the first
Mhm.
was such an issue, and like you said, the guilt and the feelings that came along with not being able to produce enough milk or to have that help with your son, and then to be able
Mhm.
to go 14 months with your daughter, that's a super huge
Oh, I was
accomplishment.
so proud. Thank you.
You should be, that's
Um,
huge, yeah, for sure.
I'm also proud of the fact that we were able to avoid the threat of C-section. So when we transferred the doctor to Dr. Carlson, I had made it very clear that I did not want to have a C-section unless it was life-threatening. You know, I told him my biggest concern is how big my apron belly is. I'm afraid of infection. You know, I can't imagine how hard it would like. I can't even survive a Nebraska summer without getting some sweat and stuff under there. How am I going to keep an incision site clean? With the newborn, I'm genuinely worried that because of my size, I won't be able to. Our apartment was up on the third floor. So I was like, I'm afraid of getting up to
Mm,
our apartment. I'm afraid of taking care of our daughter. Like, my husband burned through his paternity leave because our daughter came early and he had to be at the appointments with me because it really was like life or death at that point. I joke around and say she tried to kill me, So it was really rough. And he was like, "Oh, absolutely not." He's like, "I am not a fan of C-section either way, much less on larger women, especially larger women with apron bellies." He's like, "I don't understand why someone would be comfortable doing that." He's like, "If we can avoid it, we will avoid it at all costs." And I'm like, "Thank you. I believe in my ability to push. So let's do this."
yeah, and
Um,
it's so funny because that is the stigma, right, of like, "Oh, if you're a plus size woman, you're guaranteed to have a
mhm.
C-section," or
'Cause you won't be able to
and some
push.
doctors do kind of yeah, exactly, some doctors perpetuate that stereotype, but
Mhm,
it is, you're able exactly, unless there's a life-threatening issue, you are able to have a vaginal delivery just like anyone else can.
mhm. Um, so when I had my daughter, when I got pregnant with her, I was about, I wanna say 245, 250, and with Ruby, I got up to about 316, and I didn't lose a whole lot after I gave birth to her. I lost about maybe 20 pounds. Um, but in that year following with the breastfeeding and postpartum, I got up to, over 400 pounds. And so now she's 3 and my biggest weight is 400. Um, I am currently at 360. I've lost 40 pounds. with just diet and exercise. But I finally found a doctor that understands what I've been saying. And ironically enough, it's a sleep doctor. It's not my primary physician. It is not my OB. It was my sleep doctor because he's like, you can eat like a rabbit, but if you're not sleeping, you're not going to lose that weight. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Like I tell doctors that I watch my diet and they're like, yeah, right. I actually had to fire a doctor. My general doctor, I am so mad at him. I brought in a food journal for 3 months of what I had eaten and I'd gone normal diet. Like this is what I eat in a normal day. So there was some fast food in there. There was some coffee, some Starbucks, stuff like that. And I had logged 3 months before the appointment and I brought it to him and I was like, this is what I've been eating because I ballooned up after my son and I knew I was going to balloon up after my daughter. I knew my hormones were going to be messed up. I knew that weight gain was on the horizon. And I tried to get ahead of it. I was like, can you guys help me? Can we check my hormones? Is there something out of alignment here that I can pop back in and hopefully avoid the weight gain? Because it was really debilitating. Like it really hurts. Like I'm going to have a newborn to take care of. And it's not as simple as diet and exercise when I'm breastfeeding and all that. Because if I diet too much, if I exercise too much, I'm going to lose my supply, and I'm already struggling to keep it.
Right. And you have to be
And
able to supply and
yeah.
nourish yourself with the right foods anyways. Yeah.
hmm And he didn't even look at it. He told me instead of ordering the double cheeseburger and the large shake, why don't you try to order something like a grilled chicken or an iced tea with no sugar? And he was talking about like a local dairy spot. It's like a Dairy Queen. They call it, it's Dairy Chef. I've never even been there. And he was like, instead of ordering the double or doing this and that, he's like, don't do, pretty much told me quit being fat, watch what you
Right.
eat and
You're like,
exercise.
thank you, sir. Like, I kind of know how that works.
Maybe you want to look at my food log first. And
Yeah.
oh, I was so mad. And it took a long time for me to even want to find a doctor to work with because they don't listen. They really don't. It's just quit being fat. Everything will pop in as soon as you lose weight. And especially with my history of losing weight and getting pregnant, to them, losing weight means that my PCOS will just disappear. You know, um,
Right.
I had meant I've been listening to your podcast and stuff in preparation for today, and so and also just because honestly a passion of mine. I love all all things birth and babies and big women and all that. And so you were talking about the 4 different kinds of PCOS. I know nothing about any of that because I have not been able to talk to any of my doctors. When I brought it up and I asked him, "Hey, can you help me figure out what kind of PCOS I have?" He was just like, "You have PCOS. There's just the PCOS." And I was like, "No, like they've talked about like, how insulin resistance can do that." I'm like, I know I have insulin resistance. Does that mean that's the one kind I have? Can you have multiple?" And he was just like, "I don't know." So,
And that is the standard answer for so many, especially just like primary care doctors. I feel like they are
mhm.
not well versed in that at all.
And I've tried asking, can you refer me to somebody? Like I've tried looking up doctors in my area that specialize in plus size women or specialize in hormone disorders. I've tried getting sent to an endocrinologist. I've seen several endocrinologists and have left with no answers. All
Oh,
of them tell
wow.
me to get on metformin. That's it. Metformin and birth control is the end result for every avenue that I've gone down. And it doesn't work. Metformin makes me feel awful.
Have you tried to look up? I know I have not personally gone, but and what are they called? A functional medicine doctor. I know they tend to look a lot more at like holistic. So they do look at the nutrition, but then they also look at medication. They'll look at like vitamin levels and hormone levels quite a bit. I've been looking into
That's what I
that
need.
as well, just because they look at the whole picture and not just let's slap some medication and keep it moving.
Yeah, that's what I need. I don't know. Nebraska is not very progressive as far as anything goes. We have banned midwives. Our last birthing center was closed down. My friend Lauren She is a birth doula, and she's a very strong advocate for home births and things like that. Um, I was told that wasn't an option for me because I'm big and pregnancy is complicated for big girls. And I mean, fair point. My pregnancies were complicated and I did have rough labors with my son, but I feel like that could have been avoided had I not been in the hospital. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I was very underinformed for what I was up against, and that the answers I found online or in my doctors were more tailored for skinny women, for the traditional woman who
Mhm.
would go through labor. None of it was like, as a big girl, can I push on a birthing chair? As a big girl, can I get up and walk around? As a big girl, do you have a monitor that's big enough to fit my belly? You know? Um, and it's like that in every office. Do you have a cup that can go over my arm? Because I have big arms, like I have big beefy arms, which
Yep.
I'm just now finding out might be like lipedema or lymphedema or something, you know, because I've never had a name for it other than fat. I'm 35. I'm going to be 36 in 2 weeks. And I feel like I am no closer to understanding my PCOS than when I was 19. And that's
Yep.
horrible. And mind you, like my sister and I, we've done so much research on all this stuff. And I'm surprised at how much I learn all the time from other women. You know, my sister was my biggest resource. And ever since she passed, like I feel like I'm floating around here, out here by myself. And I don't know. I'm so happy that you're doing this podcast, not just for birth, but because it's so informative and so refreshing. And I feel like I would have been able to enjoy my pregnancy and my birth experience if we could have just talked about my weight and my body, not as a medical condition or a medical hindrance, but just as a part of me. It's something that we have
Yep.
to deal with. Like if a patient has a lost limb, you don't sit there and go, "Oh, this is more meant for people with two limbs." You adapt it to them. But I feel like it because you're fat, you're just lazy.
Yeah, there's so much stigma and bias that can come with being a plus size woman in general. And then you add pregnancy on top of it.
Mhm,
And I think there are a lot of great doctors, but there are a lot of biased doctors as well.
mhm,
And so it's good that you found two great OBs that were able to kind of give you the options, like you said, which way do you want to push, and gave you the options
mhm,
instead of like, no, you're a big girl. You have to push on your
mhm,
back, or you have to do this, this, and this. And so I think it's so important to know, as big women, advocate for yourself, because some doctors will just automatically put you into a category. Some doctors
mhm,
won't, but some will.
mhm,
And to be able to know your options so that you can ask for certain things for yourself and not to be ashamed. If you need to ask for a bigger blood pressure cuff or you need to ask for a bigger belly band, do it, because
mhm.
this is your experience and you deserve to be comfortable.
You deserve to take up space.
I 100%.
It was really rough, and I know I kind of glossed over the story. It's been almost 9 years since I gave birth to my son, and it's been 3 years since I gave birth to my daughter. I've been dealing with a lot of like compound grief. I've only started grieving the babies that I had lost prior because, again, they weren't treated as babies; they were treated as medical waste. So I kind of compartmentalized that and didn't take my time with it. And then when I actually got to grieve my daughter Lavinia, that's when I was like, oh shoot, these other babies, even though they don't have names, they didn't have genders, I didn't know anything about them other than they were mine, they still deserve that attention. And so I'm in therapy now, and postpartum wasn't the same with my daughter as it was with my son, because with my son I was losing my marriage. I was losing life as I knew it, and I had to start over with 4 Walmart bags and a baby. Um with my daughter, I was so supported. My husband was 100% there for me. He is a fantastic partner and a fantastic father. He would make sure I got to have hot meals. And so the I was never alone in any of that. He is such a fantastic father, but it wasn't enough to stave off the anxiety. because I'd lost
Yeah.
so many babies. I was like, oh, I finally got to this point, and then SIDS or something is going to happen, or I'm going to be sleeping, and I won't hear her. I also have a birth defect in my left ear called microtia atresia, and I was born without my left eardrum. And so I was so afraid of not being able to hear my baby if she cried if I fell asleep. So
Mm.
sleep has been very hard for me to welcome since my son was born. So for the last 9 years, I have not been sleeping. And that's something I have to fix. But that's how my anxiety manifested itself is that. And I literally had my doctor be like, you need to sleep. She is fine. And
Yeah, that's
so,
crucial, and I know it's easier said than done when you have that anxiety and you have that past history with loss, so it's great that you are going through therapy and working
mhm,
through those things, and you're right, the prior losses, even if they were early, it doesn't mean it hurts any less, it doesn't mean they matter any less, so the fact that you're able to kind of work through those things now, I think is super important.
thank you. And I would encourage anybody to do the same, you know. Um, Thank you for having this platform for us to talk about this. I feel so frazzled because I didn't really share my story with anybody. I fully intended to with my daughter, like after people were like bullying me for my belly size. I just didn't get around to it, so I just kind of left it. I know I made a couple videos in response to people being mean, but I don't see why. I didn't want to waste my time on any of that anymore because I wasn't going to continue to feed into the negativity of being plus size and pregnant and being big and loving my belly and being excited. Because it's like, especially if you tried for the pregnancy as a big girl, it's like you get treated with a how dare you, how dare you try to have a baby when you are so unhealthy yourself,
Right.
because everyone's always just so concerned about your health. It's just your health they're worried about.
Yeah, and then you get healthy and they're like, nope, still fat." And you're like, "Oh, okay, so
Uh-huh.
was it my health that you were concerned about or just the fact that I'm a bigger girl?"
Yeah. Like, "Do you wanna see my blood panels?"
Exactly, "Let me pull out my my labs for you."
Uh-huh. And that was always the response I got to whenever I was, like, talking to the doctors about trying to get ready for the inevitable weight gain. I was like, "Can we do the blood draws?" "Oh, your blood draws came back perfect. Everything looks good." I'm like, "What else can we check then? Because obviously there's something that's, like, not in line here."
But no, I definitely agree, and I think it's great that you did put that out there because even with the negativity, I know there are other women that do have a similar body shape or
Mhm.
that are a similar weight that are pregnant and going through the same thing and might feel ashamed or might feel bullied by people in their life or the internet. The internet can be a great place, but it can be a terrible place as well. But
Yeah.
put that out there and shared your story. I know that helps so many women. And then, especially now, you coming on the podcast and sharing all of the details from the first birth and then having the postpartum depression and anxiety, being able to get help from that, being able to kind of have a little bit of a redemptive second birth with your daughter and then now just navigating toddlerhood again.
Thank you. I'm so happy that I got to reach so many women, um, that people I've had women come at and message me and ask me, "Hey, what did you do? How did you get pregnant? Thank you so much," or, "It was so nice seeing a belly that looked like mine. I couldn't dare put that, I wouldn't ever post that." And I get that a lot, even outside of being pregnant, okay? I've always been comfortable with my body, so, like, I'll wear tank tops, I'll wear shorts. I've got tattoos on my arm and on my legs, like, I like being comfortable, and I do dress how I feel. In my head, I'm not a big gal. In my head, I'm itty bitty, skinny mini. I can wear mini skirts and things like that. So when they're like, "Oh, you're so confident," I'm not. I'm delusional, hun. Like I,
Yeah, I hate that comment when they're like, "Oh, you're so brave." And you're like, "No, I'm just living in
no,
my
I'm not.
body."
I'm comfortable, and I say delusional jokingly. I am,
Exactly.
obviously, I have eyes. Like, that's what drives me nuts about the doctors. I have eyes. I am self-aware. I live with this body. I cleaned under that apron, okay? Like, I know it's there. Can we just, like, talk like adults if it's an issue, tell me why and tell me how we fix it.
Yes.
Okay. Don't tell me it's because you think it looks gross. Don't tell me because it makes you think that I'm less than or lazy or anything else. You know, I want solid reasons as to why this is going to affect my health or affect my child or affect anything else.
Well, awesome, Christina. Thank you so, so much again for sharing both of your stories. I did want to ask, so there was one that you had mentioned in the middle, the lactation consultant
Oh,
resource for Nebraska.
yes. They're called Milkworks. They are located in Omaha and they also have a facility over in Lincoln. Um, those are kind of the two larger cities on the southeastern part of the state, not the panhandle. Um, but they are fantastic. They have discounted pumps. They help you measure your flanges. They can go through insurance to get you a brand new pump. They have 24/7 on-call people to help you with whatever questions you have. They're phenomenal, phenomenal women out there. Uh, I wouldn't have made it 14 months without them.
We will definitely be sure to link that resource below. So if there are other women in the Nebraska area, they can reach out to
Mhm.
them. And then also, I know you, like you mentioned, have been sharing a little bit of your journey on social media. So do you want to share where people
Yeah.
could find and reach out to you?
I am on TikTok right now. As you're looking for anything that I did with the IUI, the fertility treatments, that has all been documented on my TikTok. My Facebook is private, but I will be making another professional Facebook page here soon as I start diving deeper into my death work. Um, I'm also going to be going into birth doula classes here soon. So I'm going to be on both sides of life here and death. Very excited. I started doing healthcare because I was interested in birth. So it's everything coming full circle now. So if you wanna see more of me, it's gonna be primarily on TikTok for right now. I'm Lady_Monroe, MONREAUX.
Perfect. And we will link that below too so people can come check you out and follow along with the doula journey as well. That's super exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome, Christina. Well, thank you so much. And we will talk to you on the next one.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. If you enjoyed this episode and want more stories just like this one, please be sure to like and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you have a moment, please consider leaving us a positive review wherever you're listening to this show. These reviews are the best way for the algorithm to push out our show and get us in front of other plus-size moms who may be looking for a community like this one. Your kind words can help make sure that no one has to go through this journey alone. If you are a fellow plus-size mom and would be interested in sharing your story, please reach out to us at biggerthanbirthpodcast@gmail.com. Use the subject line, "Share my story," and I will be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Want to put a face to a voice? Head over to any of our social media pages linked in the show notes below to see more photos of today's guest. Any resources or topics discussed in today's episodes will also be linked below. Thanks again for being a part of the Bigger Than Birth community, and we will see you next week. Bye!